Frieren Beyond Journey's End has taken the anime community by storm, launching up to the top of Mount with only a few episodes and with currently no signs of stopping until the beast of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood reawakens to take back its throne. This is not a question of if, it's a question of when, and it will be considered a huge dub if Frieren holds out the top spot until it finishes its airing and the hype begins to die down. I can't believe the litmus test on if an anime is good or not is if it momentarily gets to number 1 on Mal. Like, whose idea was that? Frieren is set after the main adventure, set after most stories would be told. The Demon King has supposedly been defeated, and it seems we're watching a story of Frieren going on a journey of self-discovery. But before we go further into that, I want to talk about what other external factors are at play. What big events will happen in the story? When will it end? Because this is a story set after the adventure, we're not going to see the usual hero's journey as such. Frieren doesn't grow in skill as she's essentially already level 100. When we finally get to see Fern and Stark in action, we learn they're oh so sufficiently overpowered, and the only thing really stopping them are their own insecurities about their strengths and lack of experience in battle. At the moment, there has been very little tension in the fights, so at this point in time, I think it's safe to assume that's not what this story is trying to do. Of course, this could always change. At some point, the team may meet a demon who has up-to-date magic Frieren can't counter, or a demon that has actually learned to deceive through their mana, or even simply a demon who straight up has more mana than Frieren. There's also the fact that Fern was taken off guard by the surprise attack, so she is not invulnerable in all regards. At this early point in their journey, I'm not expecting much challenge, but as they inch their way close to the Demon King's palace, I wouldn't be surprised if a resurgence in demon forces come forth at the same time. What's clever about the structure of the show is that we're not actually being told one story, but 3. First is obviously Frieren with Fern and Stark in the modern day, but through her memories we get 2 more stories. From her time with the Heroes Party and her adventures with Flamme, the show has made it quite clear that the history that is recorded is inaccurate, where only Frieren remembers an unfiltered truth, as her memory so far has been infallible, seemingly not forgetting a detail of things that have happened even 1,000 years prior. For example, the Heroes Party are remembered as immaculate, perfect beings, suited for the title of heroes, when in actuality, Haita was a prolific drinker, and Himmel wasn't actually the true hero, being unable to pull the sword out of the stone. And then Aizen did stuff like this. But I think that's okay. Pulling a sword from a stone is no basis for proving if someone is worthy of being a hero, just like how strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. There are also clear parallels with the past and the present. Frieren is going on the same journey, and the people she's travelling with are the descendants of the heroes. Fern is arguably the descendant of Haita, who treated her as his own, with his partiality to fellow orphans. Stark is the protege of Aizen. Frieren is obviously still herself, fitting the same role, but then that leaves the question, where's the hero? Will they appear later in the story and help facilitate Frieren's internal arc about her regret of not getting to know Himmel better? But then you also have Stark with his lingering about the hero sword combined. The fact he started to learn how to use a sword just a few episodes later makes me think this could be set up for him to draw the sword and be the hero he clearly idolised from history. And if Stark can change roles, why can't the others? Cyan has joined the group and he's clearly a replacement for Haita, and while Fern may have effectively been Haita's daughter, she is Frieren's apprentice. In this new story, she might be remembered as the mage of the party. And while I mentioned it, I think it's unlikely Stark will be the hero, but Frieren this time. It is, after all, her story. I think 80 years after the defeat of the Demon King, Frieren will become the hero for a new age. These parallel stories make the show similar to the first 5 seasons of Arrow. There were 2 simultaneous stories being told at the same time, separated by 5 years. What makes this relevant to Frieren is that plot twists in the predating story affect the latter main story. For instance, we hear in the modern day that Himmel slayed the Demon King as the true hero, but we learn through Frieren that Himmel's not actually a prophesized true hero, and this may lead to further revelations down the line. What if Himmel wasn't the one to kill the Demon King? What if when they reach the Demon King's palace, it's revealed Frieren is the one who killed him, but made Himmel take the credit as to not affect her lifestyle with even higher bouts of fame, and to not ruin the fairy tale of Himmel the hero, like they did when hiding the fact he didn't pull the sword from the stone? How did Himmel react to this? What did Frieren learn from this reaction? reaction. Hell, we're told the Demon King was defeated, but where's the proof? Fake news? When Frieren, Fern, Stark and Sign reach the Demon King's castle, it may be revealed the Demon King was sealed away similarly to General Qual, ready for the new heroes to go round 2 with, or possibly even placated to live a quiet, peaceful life. Either way, I'd be very surprised if they reach the Demon King's castle and nothing happens there, especially as it's situated just before the end of the journey to heaven. And then, what will happen in heaven? Stark will most likely see his brother, Fern will want to talk to Haita, and Sign will probably get a chance to talk with his adventurer friend. I'd imagine they'll all get closure on parts of their past for their insecurities, capping off their arcs quite nicely. I also wouldn't be surprised if when they get to heaven, waiting for Stark is Ison, and maybe Sign's brother is waiting for Sign. As maybe they died during the time the main group was on their journey. That would be pretty dark. And then Frieren will obviously meet Himmel again. The series began with her lamenting on not getting the time to know Himmel properly when he was alive, but instead of finally getting that opportunity, I think he will help her realise that by going on the quest to find him, Frieren is making the same mistake by neglecting her current companions. At the beginning of the series, she realised she was living too much to the beat of her own drum and tries to rectify this by trying to recapture the past. I think she'll realise the journey in itself was just a big nostalgia trip for her. They literally take the same route she did 80 years ago, all for her quest of getting to know Himmel better, but he's gone and she should be spending the now on the people she's currently with, going on new adventures, focusing on Fern and getting to know her. Frieren already made the mistake once. She regretted not spending the time to know Himmel better, but what does she do next when she's got 2 more people who she would surely regret not spending more time with when they pass? Yeah, she pretty much does nothing. She eventually visits Haita after 20 years, and by some godforsaken miracle, that alcoholic is still alive. If that's not enough proof that a goddess exists in this story, I don't know what is. She doesn't even plan on spending time with him and only does because she gets coerced with a grimoire. After his death, she and Fern spend some time with Ison, but Frieren chooses to leave him, who is still alive, for the memory of Himmel. To me, it feels like she's grabbing onto the wrong things, but this higher fixation on Himmel makes me think there's more to their relationship that we don't know about, and that will be revealed later down the line. But still, I expect the misguided focus to be corrected once they reach heaven and she can reunite with Himmel. When that happens, she'll go to apologise to Fern for wasting 10 years of her precious life on a journey she was reluctant to go on in the first place, and to Stark and Sign for even dragging them along when they all could have been living their own lives instead of helping Frieren chase the ghosts of her past. They'll tell her it's not like that at all, that this journey helped them grow as people, how they got to know new friends and find family, and they got to travel the world in the prime years of their life. Frieren may spend the 10 years lamenting on the past, but her companions won't. I think she'll worry that she doesn't know them, but they'll prove that wrong too. She's been their guide, mentor and friend, and I think they'll help her realise she does know them all intimately, and she actually knew Himmel incredibly deeply as well, that it's not about the quantity of time you spend with someone, but the quality of time you spend with them. Ultimately, I think Frieren Beyond's Journey's End is about learning to live in the moment. But how good is Frieren, an elf who lives an unfathomable amount of time, at exploring these themes? Well, when I first started the series, I thought not good. When the remaining heroes attend Himmel's funeral and Frieren breaks down in tears, I'm aware most other people did as well and found the moment quite beautiful. Unfortunately for me, I didn't have this experience, as Frieren was bawling her heart out, lamenting on why she didn't try to get to know Himmel more during his life. All I could think was, why doesn't she know this already? Why doesn't this character, an elf who has lived for thousands of years, already know humans live a much shorter lifespan? I get she knew mentally, but it felt that she should have had this emotional revelation of the fleetingness of human life when she was much younger, and had learnt she can't just live on her own schedule and get to know people at the pace she's comfortable with. Fortunately, since that moment, this has been addressed. Our current understanding of Frieren's life was that she was born and raised in the elf village. The first human she met was presumably Flamme, when after she died, Frieren lived in solitude until Himmel, Haita and Ison recruited her. After this, while Frieren wasn't actively avoiding humans, she spent this time travelling alone, not getting close to anyone in particular. The slow reveal of this timeline has helped me come to terms with why Frieren hasn't learned a key fact of life yet, and as such, I'm glad I'm now more invested in the story. Something I don't necessarily agree with is Frieren's viewpoint that many years aren't that long of a time when she has the same daily pattern as a human. I'm going to assume the majority of people watching this are actually going to disagree with me, but I think it's important to get my viewpoint out to help you understand my general thought processes on other matters as well. Frieren effectively lives like a human. She gets up in the morning, if someone is there to wake her, which is very human, eats during the day, and generally works towards whatever her goals are before going to bed at night. Presumably she has a circadian rhythm similar to a human's, so has to pace herself in a similar way. She's also about as productive as a human. She travels at the same speeds as a human, reads at a similar speed, and largely intakes information at the same rate as a person. And I'm going out on a limb, and I'm going to say she learns at the same rate as a human. My point is, an individual day for a human is going to be perceived as basically the same as it is for Frieren. She wants to devote time to do something, it'll take her about the same amount of time as it will for anyone else. The obvious advantage is that she has prior experience to help facilitate any new learning she does, and she doesn't have to worry about devoting her life to one trade, worrying it's the wrong decision. Or she can learn about a specific discipline for longer than anyone else, namely magic. Because Frieren sees the passing of time as something much quicker than humans, that leads her to see that spending 10 years with Himmel as not enough time to get to know him. But this made me ask the question, how long does she think she needs to get to know someone? What does she expect to know about someone? To know them? That she didn't learn in those 10 years? Is it just more of a feeling? That's what I think it is. I think Frieren expects that she should just know more about someone to say she knows them, but can't properly define what that something is, not realizing the value of what she already has. When Frieren says she doesn't really know people, it's already been demonstrated time and time again that is not true. She makes the effort to remember her companions' birthdays, which just from the difference in lifespan makes the one humans have more precious than her own. She learns the importance of eating giant burgers for Ison and remembers them for Stark. She also makes sure to do stuff for her friends. One great example is that during her travels, she was taught a spell to sour grapes, and when she reunited with Ison, made sure to use it for him, as those are his favourite food. Frieren always makes an effort to be there for people, giving guiding words to Stark, being there to comfort Sign and Haita, and pushing Fern so she can have experiences which will make her grow, and she is very good at it. You can only help people if you get the people you're helping. I don't know what Frieren thinks she needs to know about a person to consider she knows them, and I hope at some point she'll realise that it's not the quantity of time you spend with someone that helps you know them, but the quality of time. Even now, that's bubbling in her subconscious. As she's travelling, her mind keeps wandering back to two specific moments in her life, her time with Flamme and her time with Himmel, Ison and Haita, both of which were times which only lasted a handful of years, where she has centuries more of memories. But not once has she recollected those times. These experiences clearly affected her more than she realises. She knows her companions better than anyone, not because she spent more time with them, but because she did more with them. And what could be better bonding than travelling the world together? So when Frieren talks about how 50 years is no time at all, I disagree with the idea that 50 years is like the equivalent to a day for her. It's the equivalent of 50 years for Frieren. She can only get as much done as a human can in that time, just without any deterioration from aging. I fully understand that Frieren is a being where 10 years is less than 1/10 of her lifespan, meaning she can live for over 1 million years. I get why she can be so laissez-faire in her attitude to doing something which would take years, but because nothing conscious can live for anywhere near as long as Frieren can, all anyone can do is guess what her attitude to time would be. So you can't say I'm wrong because you can't prove it. Ha! What we can do though is compare it to other near-immortal beings in media. I'm British, as you might be able to tell, so can't go into this topic without making this comparison. Doctor Who. For those who don't know, Doctor Who is a show about a near-immortal alien who travels all of time and space with a human companion, in which each episode is its own adventure. As the show has gone on, recently passing its 60th anniversary, it has explored the theme of an alien who spends their time surrounded by humans who live a much shorter time than the Doctor does. However, unlike Frieren, the Doctor never once thinks that they don't know their companions well. In fact, they are often the Doctor's best friend for the time they spend travelling together. No, the conflict of these relationships is that the Doctor is in a constant state of grief because, due to their relationship with time, all of their friends are both dead and alive. The Doctor doesn't want to live a full life with their companions because if that happened, they would just outlive them.
You can spend the rest of your life with me, but I can't spend the rest of mine with you.
Meaning that they will have essentially kept their friend. Instead, the Doctor prefers to travel with someone for a short amount of time, and then by coincidence, catch up every now and then to see how they've grown as an individual. It creates the idea that they've lived fuller lives away from the Doctor, so when one of them dies, the Doctor can't just go back in time and meet a younger version of them, as the Doctor has used up all of their time together without impeding on the rest of their life. The Doctor would think it's unfair to have every second of someone's life be spent with them. Of course, there's also the meta-narrative that when one of the actors actors dies, they obviously can't have them reappear in the show, but the show has addressed an actor's death by having the character also pass away, and the Doctor learns about it at a later date. And this is my interpretation of how the character handles and respects their friends' passings. By always living in the present, in the current adventure, it allows the Doctor to escape their grief, which is millennia long, similar to Frieren. Frieren also lives in the present with her impulses and desires without accounting for those around her, but the difference in how the two characters perceive that difference in time compared to a human is worlds apart. They both know humans lead much shorter lives, but Frieren sees that time span as small and will do what she wants to do at the pace she wants to do it, because she can always do other things later, whereas the Doctor doesn't see that time that way and wants to do everything at once, and knows that what you do in a set amount of time is more important than how much time there is.
Some people live more in 20 years than others do in 80.
I also want to add that the episodic format of Doctor Who and the fact it is a family show does mean it can't explore the topics of grief and hold a continuous storyline and conversation about it while keeping to a wider audience, whereas Frieren is a singular story, so it does have the ability to dig a bit deeper in that regard. I want to quickly say for the people who have watched the 60th anniversary specials and want to mention how the 14th Doctor did settle down with a companion, that specifically was to finally process the grief, not about outliving Donna, but going further into Doctor Who is a whole of a video. The second comparison I want to make is to Sandman. Quick rundown on that show is that the Sandman is the king of dreams who lives in a realm where dreams live. Every now and then he goes to Earth and does some shenanigans. In one such instance, he overhears a man discuss how he wishes he could live forever, and on a whim decides to grant this man's dream, fully expecting him to regret this decision down the line. To keep track of one another, the two agree to meet at the same pub every 100 years for a catch-up. And while I don't want to spoil specifics, as this was an episode of brilliant television, we get to see the perspective of a man who gets to live forever and what he chooses to do with all that time, and generally he's quite happy. But as the centuries go on, his mindset doesn't change to seeing the years as getting shorter, just that he has more of them. He never seems to think the people around him live for such a tiny amount of time. Now, I will concede to the argument that this man has spent his entire life surrounded by humans, whereas Frieren barely has, so has to adjust to their lifespans, as she does when coming to terms with Himmel's death. But I think I'm just more interested in these other deep dives into near immortality than what Frieren is doing, unfortunately. I still think Frieren's journey will end with her coming to this realization, and I just need to shut up and strap in for the journey. I think when this epiphany happens, it will be very powerful. But this is something for the end of the story, when they reach heaven. So why are they taking so long to get there? What I've described is just the end of the story, and yet we're clearly in it for the long haul. Is seeing so much of this journey really integral to the message? I mean, the first obvious answer is that the mangaka wanted time to flesh out this world he's clearly spent a lot of time developing, as well as the other characters. I've discussed Frieren's arc, but the others will have arcs too. There'll be more they want to explore with the demons and the perspective of elves, as well as the plot lines following the heroes party and with Flamme. There's a lot this story's doing, but if I'm right on where the story is heading in terms of taking so much time to follow Frieren on a journey to heaven, taking that much time is absolutely integral to the theme. If it's a story about the journey, not the destination, about living in the present, then watching Frieren on that journey is vital. Maybe Frieren will spend the journey thinking about the past, but the ones she's travelling with are absolutely there for the now. And as an arbiter of human history, Frieren is there to witness the current generation. By seeing the adventure they go on, we get to experience the journey with Frieren. And I, for one, am excited to see the full journey the creators want to show us.